Alrighty, good morning, YouTube. I was saying we were having a good morning, and I'm not having one. All right, so first of all, am I live finally? Nobody's out there? It's showing 5 people on. Hello? It's on. Good. Okay, thank God. YouTube. This technology is so amazing, and yet it has so many issues. All right, so good morning. I'm Greg from Greg's Tutoring. Uh, I come from. You can contact me at GregsTutoringNYC at gmail.com. I do a lot of things on specialized tests and state tests and things like that. And I'm having a wonderful day today so far. Okay, so what we're going to focus on today is SHSAT material. I see Savage has a question about the SHSAT already. For the subtopics for geometry in the 9th grade SHSAT, which subtopics should I focus on more? That's a good question, and it's a problem question because you don't know. You just don't know. There's certain things that are going to come up. Well, first of all, remember that all of the 9th grade math incorporates all the math before that. So it's also talking about 8th grade math. So things like exponents are always going to come up. FOIL is always going to come up. Doing coordinate geometry is going to come up somehow. Not necessarily like your question that you posted in the other thing yesterday about the circle, but coordinates, they at least want you to know that you can do XY plotting and stuff like that. A scatter plot is certainly going to come up. The same as the 8th grade math stuff. Some algebraic thing is going to come up. Well, you have to solve for X. Things like that. So it's hard to say. You have to take all those topics and just make sure you mastered every single one. I think I mentioned this on YouTube the other day, but if this is true even of the state test, if there's like 200 subtopics, they will not and they cannot ask every 200 subtopics. So on a given test of a given year, they may only ask 75. And you're left asking, well, what about the other 125 subtopics I studied for? Well, too bad. You don't really know. And what it comes down to is you have to have that mastery of the math. And then now if we move into something like the SHSAT, it gets even more complicated because the SHSAT is a more complicated test. Plus, they don't want you gaming the test. I don't know if you guys know what that means. They don't want you studying only to pass the test. The SHSAT's not supposed to be something you're necessarily supposed to be prepping for, okay? And that's why some people say, oh, you have a leg up if you're prepping and you're studying. That's true to a certain extent, but it's not true to another extent. If what was going on in the classroom was sufficient, you wouldn't need this extra work. So you're not gaming it by trying to better yourself by learning this material. But the SHSAT has the same issue. There's X subtopics, and they can only ask Y. And even out of the ones they ask, let's say one of the questions is exponents. They might show an exponent one like x to the n over x to the m. But that's only trying to demonstrate exponent division. They may only ask that, but what about x to the n times x to the m? They may not ask this. So even within a subtopic, they may not ask everything about it. Okay? Or if you did watch my LCM video a couple of days ago, where I did a part 2 and a part 3, the part 2 talks about pathological situations. Like what if you're doing the LCM involving a 0 or a negative number? So depending on the SHSAT or the subtopic. So it really comes down to trying to master everything. So that's a good question, and it's an important one. So when you ask about subtopics just for geometry, so if we even lower, better. We still have the same thing. That said, they don't really delve too much. You do go into things like the area of a circle, but they don't really go into the 3D shapes too deeply. You'll be asked for volumes of a sphere maybe, and if they do that, for that, they'll probably give you the formula for it, although you guys should know that already. At some point, I'm going to do a video that gets more specific about a lot what the subtopics are. So there's that kind of a thing. All right? Yeah, what's your other question? Yeah, guys, just ask your questions. Don't say I have a question. Just ask them. and I'll just decide whether to answer them or not after that. Just pop out your questions, and we'll just go for that. If we're in the middle of a problem, still pop out your questions. I can always answer to you guys privately. I can also do a whole nother YouTube about some of the questions. All right? So while he's popping that out, because the other stream, I deleted the other stream already. What topic should I put greater emphasis on the 9th grade SHSAT? Could you please list them? It's the same question. You're asking the same question in reverse. There's no greater emphasis. There's just what the topics are, and the truth of the matter is, from year to year to year to year, even though we can kind of get a composite of what all those questions are, we don't know what new question they're going to pop up next year. So you still have to study and study well. Okay, that's the kind of thing it is. And this is true for the 8th grade test, and it's even true again for this New York State exam. We don't ever know really what they're ever going to ask, right? And if they're trying to, and especially on something like the state test is different than the SHSAT. They're testing different things. The SHSAT's trying to test your rigor, your thinking out of the box, taking creative problems and coming up with creative solutions for them. Okay, let me say that again. You're going to take a creative problem and get a novel creative solution for it. So that's what the SHSAT's testing. So they can rarely give you anything. They're just trying to see if you're thinking out of the box. That was my thing. If you come back to this example number 27 that's on the screen right now, that's really what it's talking about, because I'm going to do that again. I deleted the other stream. So if we have, for instance, the 25 times n minus 1 versus the 25 times n minus 1, when I had done that stream, I said it's probably worth doing the distributive property, and I kind of went, nah, it doesn't matter. But the thing is, if you expanded that out and got 25n minus 25, you would have seen that this has to be smaller than that. Okay? So this is a creative solution. The literal solution was doing what we did yesterday, where we did n less than 0, n equal to 0, and greater than 0, and then we did n between as a fraction, and then we did n between here. This is the mathematical prowess and the savvy, all right? But this one is the one like, hey, if you understand what this means, you just get the answer right away. And even though it leapt out at me that the distributive property was there, I told you guys that it was no big deal. It turns out it was a big deal. You could have solved it, and especially on a test like this. So there's two aspects. On a test like this, you're trying to get the answer quickly. You only have a minute and a half or so to do each question. Maybe a little later on, in a few days. Yeah, you know what? I started to do it, and the more I did it, the more topics I came up with. So I need to work on that more. I can't say when it's going to happen. In fact, I can't even guarantee I'm actually going to do it. So all I can do is keep moving along with these kind of things, and work from there. All right, so let me jump into some more of these questions. All right, so the stream is going, everybody? Let's see, where are we? So we did 28, we did 29, we did 30. Oh yeah, we were on 31. So a jar contains 5 candies, 2 orange, 3 green, so we have 5 total. Okay, 1 candy is selected. They're not telling us orange or green, so it's random. So basically 1/5. I'm just following the problem so far. Then a second candy is selected. So because it's replaced, it's also 1/5. And actually we would multiply those. Okay, then it's going to give us the A versus the B now. So the probability that both candies selected are green, we're going to use the same kind of thing. There's 3 out of here. So it's going to be 3/5 times 3/5. Okay? And this is the probability of the first candy selected as green is 3/5. So if we multiply this out, we're going to get 9/25. Okay? So this is obviously greater. Okay, and for the same logic, I actually didn't have to do this math. Because the truth of the matter is, the probability that I selected 1 candy that's green has to be greater than the probability that both candies were green. Think it through logically, right? Right? So that's the kind of thing you want to get at here. That you're trying to, there's this yin-yang between using your mathematical astuteness and your mathematical kind of radar detector that you're picking up some of these problems here for. And that's why it's hard to say what exactly should I study for? What exactly? There's certainly a list of topics. We're sure they're not going to ask you to do 1 plus 1, right? They're not going to ask you that. And they're not going to give you stuff with x to the 3 unless it's just simple subtractions. On the SHSAT, they're not going to ask you to solve this. Okay, a trinomial, a polynomial with a 3. They're normally not going to ask you something like that. Okay, the same with geometry. They're not going to show you a tetrahedron and then ask you to do that, unless there's some obvious parts to the problem that's solvable. All right, they're going to ask you to solve angles. They're going to ask you maybe to figure out where a circle lies on a coordinate. They may ask you stuff about a prism, but it's going to be volume. So you might be asked for the volume of a rectangular prism, of a triangular prism, things like that. Okay, 32. Let me just make sure we're live. We seem to be live. All right, you guys can join in. In fact, I would suggest you do, trying to come up with some of these answers. Let me try to get a clean scrap paper. Have I run out of total screen? No, here's one. All right, so, okay, wait a second. I can't see this on my screen. Let's see. So we have a word problem. We're going to read it through and then kind of come back and do it a sentence at a time. So in February, apples were selling at $1.50 a pound. Cool, no big deal. In March, the price of the apples were 10% higher than the February price. All right, so the price went up. In April, the prices were 10% lower than the March price. So they're asking at the end the price of the apples in April versus at the end versus $1.50. So basically what seems to be happening is we have apples started at $1.50, and they're kind of trying to see if do they end up being back at $1.50 because they went up 10% and down 10%. All right? So a lot of kids are going to say, yeah, it went up 10%, down 10%, and they're equal. So you guys at this point should know that they're not equal. So let's kind of set this up. So in February, the price was $1.50. Apples were selling at $1.50 a pound. In March, the price of the apples was 10% higher. So it's going to be plus 10%. Okay, there's a way to think about this. It's 110% then. Okay, I'm just, because this is simple math that you could actually do in your head. So 10% of this is 15 cents. Right? This is your mathematical. All I do is divide by 10. 10% is 1/10, so I just divide it by 10. It's 15 cents. So we get $1.65. All right? Because that's simple to know $1.50 times 110 and divide that by 100. So I get $1.65, right? Okay. So then in April, we're starting with $1.65 now then. We're going to subtract 10%. And if you also want to think of this is 90% then. But again, because this is so obvious, I'm just going to do it. So this is 1.65 cents. So we get into a question here. Do we use 16 cents? Do we use 1.65 cents? Or do we round it up and get 17 cents? Let me make sure I'm not falling off the screen here. So let's kind of do the three of them. So we have 165 minus 16 cents. That's 5.1. We get 9.4. We get $1.49. If we did the 17-cent one, that's 4. That's what does that become? 8. This is 5. So we get $1.48. So the 16.4 cents one, did I do that right? Something tells me I did it wrong. Becomes 1.485, which also points to there. All right, so we see it's less than $1.50. There's no way it's going to be greater than $1.50. All right, so the answer should be B. B should be the greater one. Right? What question number was that? Where are we? Where are we? That's 32. Yes, 32 is B. All right, so now they're going to move away from this A and B thing. I think that's the last question of this section. We're going to go into something like this. So this gets to the normal kind of questions. I can't remember what's, I think this was on the one that got cut off. So the first few questions of this are normally kind of easier, and then they get harder and harder and harder as the questions go on. So number one is totally easy peasy, but be careful, be careful. So it says the area of the grid shown is 5 centimeters squared. Let me make sure that's on the screen. Let me just shift that over slightly so you can see the question numbers. There we go. So the area of each grid shown below is 5 centimeters squared. It shows grid is a shaded in area. It's some sort of blobby L shape. What is the area of the shaded region? So it's just a matter of counting them and multiplying by 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I get 8. I'm going to count a different way. 6 plus 2 is 8. Yeah, so I got 8 times 5 is 40. And the answer to that should be A. Yes, it is. Okay, so this is kind of no-brainerish. You could also count it by 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. You could have done it that way as well. Again, this was not a grid-in question. It may have been a good one for grid-in. I'm not sure how somebody gets 50, 60, or 70. But that's the way it is. There's 8 squares in the shaded-in area. All right? Some people may have done something else. I don't know how they did it. So... Say that again. Leo had a question. No, I don't see that. Unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. All right. Anyway, number 2. So a jar contains 5 red balls, 6 blue balls, and 8 white balls. Okay, I'm going to take it a sentence at a time. Again, I'm just going to follow what's happening. I'm not going to read the whole problem. So I have 5 red, 6 blue, and 8 white. And by not reading the problem, I'm slightly hijacking myself. So I get 14, I get 19 total. Because normally in this kind of question, this is what's going to happen. So let me just make sure it's 14. Yeah, it's 19, so we get 19. All right. If one ball is chosen at random and then returned to the jar, and the second ball is chosen at random, what is the probability that both balls would be red? So basically what they're asking is, if a red ball is chosen at random, so then it's not random. So if a red ball was chosen, it would be 5 out of 19. Okay? It's returned to the jar, and the second red ball is chosen. It will also be 5 out of 19. If it wasn't returned, it would be 4 out of 18. But it was returned. So that's what we have. So they're not asking you to calculate it. So the answer here will be D, number 2. 2 is D. So does everybody see that if it wasn't returned, it would be 4 out of 18? Because if we took it out of the jar, I'm changing the problem. This is the answer to the actual problem. I'm changing the problem so that it wasn't returned. That means if it was taken out, it would be 5 out of 19. And then this now becomes 4 red, and this becomes 18 total. So the next time through, we have 4 out of 18. All right? Okay, 3 is a good one. And again, Savage, this is a good one even on the grade 9 one. This is going to blow a lot of kids out of the water because it's mixing and matching stuff. So first of all, you should have enough knowledge of exponents and scientific notation to just answer this straight up. To just answer straight out. First of all, notice that that's a plus and not a multiplication. And then also notice that the exponents are different. So we have 3.2 times 10 to the 7. And make sure you guys have your glasses on and everything during this test. We also have 4.1 times 10 to the 5th. So notice the exponents are different. So we cannot get 7.3 times something. That's a no-go. So the answer can't be 12, and we don't add these up this way. I wrote multiplication. This is being added. If it was multiplication, we would get the 12th, but then we would multiply these two. But since it's addition, we can add these and add these. That's not how it works. We only add exponents when there's multiplication going on. But across the two of these is only addition. So D is a no-go. I'm not sure how they get B or A, but why don't we just solve the problem correctly and then figure stuff out. So we need to convert the 3.2 times 10 to the 7th into the other form, the 4.1 times 10 to the 5th one, or we need to convert the 4.1 times 10 to the 5th into the other one. Okay? So it's random. So I'm just going to go with my gut, and I'm going to change the second one into the first one. So I have 4.1 times 10 to the 5th. And I'm going to move it one at a time. If I have an A and a B, if I divide A by 2, I need to multiply this by 2. Okay, let me do that over. If we have A times B equals Z, if I divide this by 2, I have to multiply this by 2 so that it's still equal to Z, because the 2's will cancel out. I'll have A over 2 times 2B, and this is the same as 2 over 1, and we still get A times B equals Z. All right? So these work the same kind of way as that. All right? So if I divide this by 10, I'm going to have 0.41 times 10. So if I divide this by 10, I have to multiply this by 10. So I'm adding another 0, and this becomes 10 to the 6th. So if I do it one more time, I get 0.041 times 10 to the 7th. So my goal was to try to match the 3.2 times 10 to the 7th. So now these match. So now I can add them. So I'm going to get something times 10 to the 7th. So I'm going to get 3.2, sorry, I was sloppy there, plus 0.041, and I'm going to get 3.241. So I get 3.241 times 10 to the 7th, what turns out to be C. All right? And by the way, it works the other way too. So if I left this one alone, and now I'm going to try to convert 3.2 times 10 to the 7th into a 5th, right? So I'm going to reduce this a bunch of times. So if I go 10 to the 6th, I divided this by 6. By 10. So I'm going to multiply this by 10. I move the decimal over 1 over this way. And if I go to 10 to the 7th, I'm here like this. Wait, I said that backwards, didn't I? Here, let me start this over. I was supposed to go down to 5. All right? So I get 3,200 times 10 to the 5th. And now I have 4.1 times 10 to the 5th. So now the 10 to the 5ths match. And I need to add these two. So I get 3,204.1 times 10 to the 5th. All right? So I don't see that answer here. The only 10 to the 5th is A, and that's no good. So I'm going to work backwards the same way. If I bring this to 10 to the 6th, this becomes 320.41. All right? And if I do it one more time, I get 32.041. And I think I screwed up somewhere, because this actually should be over here. All right, and that would give us the C again. Where did I screw up? At 4.1 times 10 to the 5th, 3.2 times 10 to the 7th. This was supposed to be 32, and then that was supposed to be 320. Sorry about that, guys. So this becomes 324.1. So that's how we get the right answer. I added an extra 0 here before. All right, so that's a cutesy problem. I even screwed it up, but at least I'm able to rectify it. By the way, when you make an error in a problem, you can often feed it back in or do it a second way. That's the good thing about doing these things the second way. I already did it this way, and then I did it this way now. I got 2 different answers. One of them has to be done wrong. So you often have ways to verify and double check that something was done wrong. All right? Okay, question number 4. Okay, 4 is a good one as well. So this is one you can kind of do in your head, although I generally tell you guys to refrain from doing that kind of stuff. So which value is not equal to 2/3? All right, so we can kind of skip the ones that look uglyish. So A is like, is it A? I'm not sure. Is it B? Double Okay, is it C? That still looks ugly. Is it D? Oh, wait, I could see in D that if I multiply it by 1.2, divide by 1.2 in the numerator denominator. I get 2/3. Okay? We can also do the cross product. 2.3 over 3.6 equals 2/3. Okay, if we multiply these out, we're going to get the same number, which is 7.2 equals 7.2. Okay? So that's equal. So now what about 1 over 1.5? We can also do the same thing. We get 3 here, we get 3 here. They're equal. You can also look and see this is multiplied by 2. So this is multiplied by 2. So that would work as well. Okay, so C and D are equal to 2/3. So now we're left with the ugly B and A. So how about we actually sweat it out and do the division? 3 goes into 2 0 times. 3 goes into here 6 times. We get 18. We get 2 left over. 3 goes into here 6 times. We get 2 left over. 3 goes into here 6 times. We get 2 left over. Oh, wait a second. So this is 0.6 repeating. All right? So I think most people can probably get this far. 99% of people are going to rule out C and D, and they're really going to be left with A and B. And most of you, because if you type 2/3 into your calculator, and you're not allowed to use the calculator on this test, you would get all the 6s with the 7 at the end. That's because it's rounding. It doesn't know what to do with the repetition. So it rounds the last digit up. Even if your calculator only allowed like two digits, it might do something like that. That's, since it rounded, that's not equal to it anymore. All right? It's not equal to it anymore. That bar over the 6 is important. So B is actually 2/3, but A is not 2/3. Let me see, 4 is A, right? Can you bring loose leaf in the test room for like calculations? Oh, I forget the answer to that. First of all, you're not allowed to bring your own scrap paper in. But I believe they give you a piece of scrap paper. Maybe one. You can also write on your test booklet anywhere. Okay? And I believe you're allowed to ask for extra paper. But you're not allowed to, the only thing you're allowed to bring in is your number 2 pencils, erasers, and I believe the SHSAT allows a watch. But it can't be a smartwatch. It has to be a dumb watch. And that's it. That is it. No phones, no calculators, no extra anything. That way nobody has a leg up or a leg down. That way you can't ask another kid for their scrap paper where you put the answers on and all. It gets complicated. It's just not about cheating. It's just about the test room being complicated. They want to keep it less complicated. If you need scrap paper, I believe you're allowed to ask the teacher for another piece. All right? But there's normally enough on your test paper that you can have that. And I believe there's a blank page or 2 in the test booklet as well. All right? And you can use the cover and stuff too, I believe. Obviously, anything that requires bubbling and so on. Oh, Dream gave everybody a watch? Wait, to keep? Or during a sample test? Yeah, I don't think they give everybody a watch during the actual test. In fact, I'm positive they don't do that. Yeah, and by the way, there are some tests where they don't let you bring in watches. I think that's a bad idea, especially in New York City. This is being administered in normal classrooms, and the average clock in a room doesn't work, or it's set to the wrong time. And even a clock that does work and set to the right time, it might be off by 5 minutes. So you really want to pace things yourself and be aware of what's going on. And there's an actual strategy for pacing actually during the test, which goes beyond your own strengths and weaknesses and your own pacing strategy and so on, which is that kind of, and you can't have an alarm go off either. Even you're not even supposed to have a quiet alarm. So you may have something flash on your watch or something. You're not supposed to be able to have even that kind of a watch. All right, but you want to pace things out by sections, by categories, and even sometimes by page. There's ways to code. Before you start the test, you can code all the pages, not just for time, but even your strengths and weaknesses, so that you're keeping track of where your weaknesses are, where you have to be, and so on, so that you just keep going pacing. So if you do get caught up in a complicated problem, that either takes too much space on a page, takes too long, that you just keep knowing to keep going. And it's only at the end when you've finished everything and you have time to go back that you can go back to more of the harder problems. And it becomes a calculated risk. The whole thing is a calculated risk. This is not a take-home test that you get a month to do, whatever. And you can Google the answers. And by the way, everybody knows the truism of that too. A take-home test, a lot of people never get 100 on, because a lot of take-home tests are hard, right? So it's that kind of a thing. So so no, you can't bring in loose leaf, because and there's always going to be some guy that has cool paper, right? That everybody's attracted to, and so on and so on. So it's no, you can't do that. You're going to get, when you get your ticket. Your ticket is a piece of paper, and the piece of paper is going to have a whole bunch of rules and things about that on it. Also, when you're at the actual test, you have to sign something that you followed the rules and things like that as well. So if you're found with something, you actually, even if it's blank, the proctor has the right to throw you out and not let you get scored or graded or whatever. So just follow the rules, guys. All right, so let's see where we are here. Because I'm not sure. Let me see. Wait a second. How long did this stream start? Okay, we're at 40 minutes, I believe. 41 minutes. Let me see here. Yeah, we're 40 minutes, give or take a few minutes. All right, so I'm only going to do a few more problems. So we're at question number 5. Let me see that your guys' is, 5 is showing on the screen, all right? So if 8.01 plus 1.95 times t equals t, and again, this set of problems today is easier. The next group after this is going to get harder. That's how the ISEE works. By the way, the SHSAT does not, some tests put all the easy questions up front, like the ACT and the SAT sometimes does that. If there's 20 questions, the first 10 might be easy, and then the second 10 might be hard. The SHSAT mixes them up. There's also even some tests, I can't remember what it was, where they do the hard questions up front and the easy ones at last. So you can do things in any order on the SHSAT. You can even do the English, do some of the English, do some of the math, do some of the English, do some of the math. You can bounce back and forth. And they're not ranked by easy, hard. They're just ranked by being presented. So there's no rhyme or reason in the SHSAT question order, okay? So if 8.5 plus 1.95 times t equals t, then what is the value of t? All right, this is a good question. Good question. So Leo says B. Think it through. Think it through. Because if we divide both sides by t, we get the 8.05 plus 1.95 equals 1. Right? And another thing is to add the two of those. So we get 8.5 plus 1.95 is 9. That is equal to 10. So we get 10t equals t. If I did that right, 8, 9, right, 10t equals t. 10t equals t. So most people, 10t equals t, the answer has to be a tenth. That doesn't work either. So this is really the identity property. Anything times x, anything times 0 is 0. So this is really the identity of 0. So this is one of the questions that are terribly easy, but also terribly hard at the same time. And they force you to think it through. So again, this could be a SHSAT question, although I don't think I've ever seen it on it. But it's also a cutesy question. And the SHSAT, they may have made this a little harder. So right, the answer for 5 is D. Okay, 6. 6 is a really good question. And this, even though it's good, it may not be a SHSAT question. 6 is a really good question. What do you guys think of that? For what value of x is the equation x over 3, x plus 3 over 3 plus x equals 0? For what values of x is that true? All right, so let's go to the scenarios. If it's minus 3, so this is what we get into where if you can't figure it out, you can try to solve this algebraically. You can also try to solve it by brute force. So let's do the algebra. So we get x plus 3 over 3 plus, my handwriting is so sloppy. I'm surprised I could do math because my handwriting is that bad. X plus 3 over, I'm still screwing it up. X plus 3 over 3 plus x equals 0. So we're going to do the cross product, right? So basically we're going to multiply this because we want to this end up as a numerator. All right, you're going too fast, dude. You're going too fast, bro. This times this, let me get, but that's good. So this times this, so we get x plus 3 equals 0 times 3 plus x. And that transpires into x plus 3 equals 0, right? And then we get x equals minus 3. All right, so that seems to make sense, right? We did the algebra correctly. There's no problem with that. So there's one problem with x equals minus 3. It's that when you get an answer, you're supposed to feed it back into the question. So we get minus 3 plus 3 over 3 minus 3 equals 0. So let's feed it back into the question. This is 0, right? And 3 minus 3 is 0. So we get 0 over 0, 0. And this is a happy fairy tale. So everybody lives happily ever after, right? Wrong. We can't divide by 0. Division by 0 is not allowed. You lose. All right? Everybody with me on that? You cannot divide by 0. I forget the term for this, but this is a case where you did the algebra correctly. You did the algebra correctly. And a solution doesn't work. A solution doesn't work. A solution does not work. You cannot divide by 0. Division, any x over 0 is undefined. So let's try 0. Let's try B. B says 0. Well, that gives us 3 over 3, and that's 1. Is 1 equals 0 true? Nope. All real numbers. Like, really, dude? All real numbers? So I can try 5 here. If I try 5, I get 8 over 8. Wait, that's still 1. So if I try minus 2, yeah, well, I don't like to use the word trick. I just think it means trying to understand what math is. So the real answer is there's no value for x that would make the equation true. The answer is D. Because division by 0 is undefined, then the answer is undefined, which is basically what D means in this context. Right? D can apply to different things. And by the way, this is a case where when we had the examples before with the column A and the column B, this could have been a column A, column B question. Right? And they just revised it to be a question here. So this is one where this could be a SHSAT question. Right, so number 6 is D. So again, it's testing your mathematical savvy, right? So when Savage asks, like, what are the topics on the test? This is demonstrative, again, that it's every damn freaking thing. Every damn freaking thing is the answer. And that's a tough nut to crack. So what you need to do is remember all those rules. That's one reason why I'm staying at this level, okay? And by the way, when we did, some of you guys were in the stream yesterday, asking, about what are the topics on the ELA, and what are the topics on the 9th grade thing, and what should we study, and what material can we use to study? And I said, go back to the state tests. And by the way, I said for starters. Okay, there's other answers to that question. I didn't give a full answer. I was only giving a beginning point. And I gave a beginning point because if you're not getting 100% on the state test, then you don't know all the topics. So by that logic, if you don't know all the fundamental core stuff, and another way to phrase this, and I'm not trying to be insulting, but if you can't get the easy stuff, how are you going to get the hard stuff? Right? This is what this comes down to. And you really need to know everything about everything. Is kind of what it comes down to. And again, it's a tough nut to crack. Because you don't know what question they're going to ask. Because who would think when you're trying to, Savage is asking, like, basically, what's the advanced geometry here? Or something like that. and they're asking division by 0. Like, boink, right? So you need to be across the board here. And you learned about division by 0 probably in kindergarten, right? You may not have learned it literally as division by 0, but you guys have known for a long time you can't divide something by 0. You may not have mathematically known it. In other words, you may have been taught this spatially in kindergarten, using spatial notation. Spatial, S-P-A-T-I-A-L, doing things spatially. Like, you know, if I throw a rock at you, you know it's going to hit you, because spatially you're used to how things work physically and numerically. You know if I drop a rock, it's not going to hit you, but if I toss it at you, so you're learning math spatially. You're not learning 1 + 1 math there, but you're learning, hell, if there's a rock thrown at me, I'm going to duck, right? So these are notions that you've known for a long time, and then you actually taught them. So this is the level that this is at, all right? And this is more apt to happen on the SHSAT than on the state test. The state test is more mapping you directly one-to-one. We taught you X, can you use X? The SHSAT and the ISEE and stuff, they're saying we taught you X, can you use X? And now can you do a creative solution if we vary how X is used? Then this is the crux of the matter, okay? And this is why, again, if I tie it back to the ELA questions from yesterday, this is why I'm suggesting make sure your core stuff and your fundamental stuff is down pat. It doesn't mean don't use advanced material. Definitely use advanced material. Go and look at all the advanced material you possibly can. But, you know, make sure you can walk before you run. Because if you can walk reasonable, but you can't walk perfectly, and you start trying to run, you may eventually learn to walk that way perfectly, but you should also go back and hone your walking skills in addition to your running skills. Do both. You can't exclude one for the other. There is in the sense that you have square roots and cube roots. But normally the 8th grade math does avoid radicals, you're right. And that's more of a 9th grade math kind of a question. But something like question number 7, I think this is a valid thing. And you could argue it's not really a radical question. All right, so why don't we do 7? Leo gave C. So here's the quandary with 7. Let me show you the wrong answer. So we have the square root of 25 plus 144. So some kids are going to make this into the square root of 25 plus the square root of 144. And they're going to get 5 plus 12 equals 17. That's wrong. So C is wrong. We can't split a radical through a plus sign. We can only split a radical through multiplication or division. Okay? So if it was x times y, then we can split it into 5 times 17. All right? But this was plus. This is plus. And PEMDAS is weird. I like to consider the square root sign as part of the P and the M even. All right, so it's as if. So, but there's sub-levels to this. So even that's weak. So PEMDAS breaks down at a certain point when we're dealing with radicals. So what we have to do is oblige the addition in here. So basically we had the square root of 169. We had the two of them together. Okay? And as I told you guys, know your multiples from 1 times 1 up until 20 times 20. So you would know straight out that this is 13. Right? This is a no-brainer. Of course, you could hand do it. You could go 10 times 10 is 100. 15 times 15, you can actually do it out. You can whittle it down, but you do not want to waste problem on a question. You do not want to waste time on a question like this. This is a silver plate being given to you guys on a question like this. And again, though, it's confusing. It's confusing. So again, this is why I'm staying at this level so far. Okay, there's hard SHSAT questions. I haven't covered them yet. No YouTube I've done has covered a single hard question yet. Well, that's not true, but for the majority of questions, I'm giving you easy to medium questions. Okay, Tyler's giving you guys super duper hard questions. So I feel I don't need to compete with him yet on those kind of streams. But at some point, I'm going to move into there as we get closer to the test. We're going to get harder and harder questions. I'm just trying to give you guys a way to think through things. Okay? By the way, I do the same thing. When I tutor a kid on, say, the grade 7 New York state test, I will not give them the Common Core state test. I will go back years before when there was no Common Core test. The reason I do that is because the Common Core Math and the Common Core English state test are harder than the non-Common Core versions. So when they come to a math problem, say in grade 8 Common Core state test, that math problem is most likely going to be harder than the math problem that was in the non-Common Core one. So if they just sit there and go, Greg, I don't know the answer, or they actually compute it and they get it wrong, I don't know if they got the wrong answer because they didn't know the fundamental math, or they didn't know the Common Core style of math. So I need to back off for them. I back off to make sure that they're good on all the core math. So if I can cover all the core math for them, then when we finally move into the Common Core tests, which have harder math, and the Common Core wording and stuff like that on top of it, now I know, because I went over the other topics with them, I know that their problem is with Common Core math. So I'm using the same strategy here with you guys. So that's why we're doing SHSAT-like questions. We're just trying to get the basic stuff down pat. So when we move to the harder stuff, you have the basic stuff down. Because when you have a word problem, there's two things competing with you getting the answer to a word problem. There's the raw math, and then there's the word problem. If you can't figure out the words, then it doesn't matter if you know the raw math. But you need to do both to answer it. The ELA is going to work the same way. Okay? If you don't know how to analyze a passage in grade 4, then you can analyze one in grade 8. Okay? If you can't analyze a passage in grade 8, then you can analyze one in grade 10. It's just the math there, it makes sense. So you need to hone your analysis skills. Same as vocabulary. A lot of questions deal with vocabulary, like what in the passage in line 10, the passage used the word quiescent. What does quiescent mean in this passage? And you have to go look by context. A lot of kids don't know how to do that. So if you don't know how to do that for grade 8, you can't do it for grade SHSAT ELA either, right? And the same for a comma. If you don't know where a comma belongs in grade 4, you still don't know where it belongs in grade 8. So we need to go and get those things reduced and out of the way, because it's easy to present the problem like if I have X, Y as a sentence, should a comma go here or not? Okay, so we can have something easy like that. But if I make it X comma Y comma Z comma some other phrase, the question is, which of these commas is wrong? Now I've taken something really simple and I've thrown a double whammy on it. But again, if you don't know the rules for comma for this example, you can't know it for this example. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying never, but most likely you don't know it for this example. So you need to start somewhere. And you need to start basically where you're at. So if you can't do grade 7 and grade 8 of everything, you're not going to get to the next step. And it doesn't mean you can't solve a hard problem. I'm not saying that. And it doesn't mean you guys are not smart. I'm not saying that either. I'm trying to take a generic viewpoint of this, almost a mathematical viewpoint. That if you're not totally proficient in the subset, you're not going to be proficient in the superset either, which adds features and adds complexity. So this becomes a math problem to me. All right? All right, so with that note, I'm going to stop here. So we got a bit philosophical here at the end. So any other final questions before I go? It looks like a good day. I'm probably going to throw up some Q&A parts again later, and we'll work from there. All righty. All right, people. Peace out.